Good morning. We have two Bible readings today. The first one is Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 to 11. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labour and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath and made it holy. And our second reading is Matthew chapter 11. Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30. And Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light."
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to see you here today. Special welcome to guests that we have with us today as well. And thank you, Sue, for reading those readings for us today. Don't you love it when they won't accept your password or my fingerprint even? So I should have got this fired up before and I forgot to do that. There we go. If you are driving your car or you're driving a bike and you come up to an intersection and you see this sign, what do? Stop. You stop. According to the road rules, a stop means bringing your vehicle to a complete stop. That means your wheels stop turning. That means you are pushed forward a bit. You might feel the seatbelt press against your body as you're lurching forward. You stop, put your brake on, and then after you've come to a complete stop, you look around. You make sure that the road is clear, that there are no pedestrians or other vehicles on the road. And when you know that it's safe to proceed, you take your foot off the brake and you proceed out into the intersection. That's what a stop sign means. Judging by the little chuckles I'm hearing, in reality, that's not what we always do, is it? Many people just kind of roll into the intersection. Oh, it looks pretty good. Yeah, no one's around. I'll just keep going. We slow down, almost stopping, but not completely. We make our own decisions on what is best based on what we see. And I don't think, from what I've heard, I'm the only one that very occasionally do that myself. So as we've heard today, we are beginning a new message series on the practice of Sabbath, based in part on John Mark Comer's book, Practicing the Way, and his websites and other resources that he has, in which we introduced last week. So if you weren't here last week, you didn't catch the message, I encourage you to check that out on our website. The Hebrew word for Sabbath is Shabbat. And the root form of that verb, it is a verb, the root form of that verb means to stop, to come to a stop, to cease, to be done with whatever you're doing. And often we approach God's invitation for us to Sabbath, to stop as we do a roadside stop sign. Just a suggestion. But as we see today, it's much more than that. So what does Sabbath actually look like, and what's its place today in our modern, fast, digital world? Well, over the next 4 weeks, today and the next 3 to follow, we're going to look at this biblical practice of Sabbath and see how it's an invitation for us to stop, to rest, to delight, and to worship. And through this series, over these next 4 weeks, I want you to take it, to approach it, not as something to, I'll just file that away for another day, but as God's invitation for you and for me to walk and live in a different way as followers of Jesus. As followers of Jesus who walk like Jesus walked. An invitation to be like Jesus. And you'll have an opportunity to develop these practices. Kenneth and Amanda have these breakaway sessions that are helping us explore some of that as a church. And throughout this sermon series, we'll be producing a resource. This is the one for today. I'll explain more about this next week to help you practice some of the things that we are talking about over this series. So as we begin today, we're going to look at Sabbath as an invitation to stop. Stop is more than a suggestion. It's an opportunity to reset, and it's a time to remember. The first time Sabbath shows up in Scripture is Exodus chapter 16, when the Israelites had just been freed from their captivity in Egypt. They were now on the first week of what would become a 40-week journey through the wilderness. 40-year, did I say week? So let's go back. A 40-year journey through the wilderness. They've left everything behind. They've come with nothing except a few things that they could carry. And they're wandering around in this wilderness, and they start to grumble within days of having their freedom. And they say to Moses, in Egypt, we had all the food that we wanted. We had everything. Life was good. They had very, very short memories. They were slaves in Egypt. They were being beaten to the ground daily by their slave masters. Now, they say, we have nothing. You brought us out here to starve. So God provides for them. He provides food. Food in the form of white fluffy stuff that's called manna that appears on the ground each morning, and flocks of quail that would come into the camp every evening. And the people were instructed each morning to gather as much of this manna as they could, as they needed, and to eat it during the day before it would go off by evening time. But on the 6th day, they were told to gather twice as much, enough to last for 2 days. Because on the 7th day, they were to stop work and rest. In Exodus chapter 16, verse 23, we hear these words. Moses begins this. He says to the people, this is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow is to be a day of Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake whatever you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it for the morning. Tomorrow is to be a day of Sabbath, a day to stop. A couple of chapters later in Exodus chapter 20 is the practice of stopping from working on the 7th day is incorporated into what we now know as the Ten Commandments. And it's set between the first three commandments, which are which govern the people of God's relationship with God, and then the second lot or the last 6 that govern God's people's relationship to each other, to other people. And if you have a look at what was there in chapter 20 that Sue read to us, you'll see that the Sabbath commandments take up a big chunk of the 10 Commandments. They're right there in the middle, but they take up a big portion of what the rest of the commandments are saying. And if you would have, someone's done this, so they put this in a pie chart, and the commandment for the stopping on the seventh day is actually 37% of the rest of the whole lot of the 10 Commandments. So in God's economy, it's just as important, or maybe even more important, than not lying or stealing or killing. It's that important to God that we stop. So Sabbath isn't just a good idea. It's one of the 10 Commandments. It's more than just a suggestion. So why? Why is Sabbath an important commandment of God and not a suggestion? What happens when we treat it only as a suggestion, kind of like we might treat a stop sign as we come up to it and there's no one on the road? Christians have long debated whether or not Sabbath is still a binding command for followers of Jesus to follow. And there are good people on both sides of that argument. But even if the Sabbath commandment is no longer a binding commandment, it still stands as wise words to live by. God's wisdom for life. As author Wayne Muller suggests or puts it, the Sabbath is not a burdensome requirement from some law-giving deity, you ought, you'd better, you must, but rather a remembrance of a law that is firmly embedded in the fabric of nature. It is a reminder of how things really are, the rhythmic dance to which we unavoidably belong. Long before Sabbath was a commandment of God in Scripture, it's a gift from the Creator. A gift from the Creator to you and to me and all of creation, from a generous, joyful, loving God whom Jesus called the Lord of the Sabbath. Sue read for us about what Jesus had to say about the Sabbath in Matthew 11. It was from the NIV. But I want you to listen to what Eugene Peterson paraphrases these words of Jesus. He says this: "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." And those beautiful words, paraphrasing what Jesus had said. Sabbath teaches us to walk in Jesus' unforced rhythms of grace. Now, for Jesus' original hearers who heard him speak these words here in Matthew, these words were an invitation to experience freedom. Freedom from oppression, the oppression of legalism put out by the Pharisees. These rules, this bunch of rules that they put together that needed to be followed exactly, but were almost impossible to follow. Jesus invites a different kind of rest, a rest that results in trusting in him, walking with him. Now, in our modern day, perhaps we're not oppressed by the legalism of religion like Jesus' hearers were, as much as oppressed by the legalism of productivity, to do more, to keep on doing more. Are you tired? Has become a rhetorical question in the modern age. Are you tired? Of course you are. Low-grade exhaustion is the new way that we do life. I don't want to spend too much time talking about rest today because Tom Prowse will be looking in that aspect of Sabbath next week. But here's a metaphor that may help for now as we think about what is being talked here. Imagine your life is an energy power bar, like the little bar on the top of your phone. 100% full is life to the full that Jesus offers. 0% is dead. We usually don't rest until we're dangerously tired, someone says, down to about 20 or 30%. And when we do rest, it's not even long enough to get all the way back up to full. Like if we stop charging our phone and half charge, we don't get that 100%. So what do we miss out? What do we miss out when we're running on 30% energy? We miss out on what the New Testament calls the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The best comes when we're fully rested. Wisdom, insight, hope, vision for the future, grace for other people's shortcomings and identifying our own shortcomings, energy to do our best work, and we could go on. So this is why it's important and essential to follow the way of Jesus, to be his disciple, or as Comma refers to in his teaching, to be an apprentice of Jesus. Because if the end goal is to be more like Jesus, as we talked about last week, to love people as Jesus loves people, we can't do that if we're chronically exhausted. Instead, we become angry at God, angry for God not providing the things that we expect God to provide us because of what we've done for him or done for others. When we're frazzled and exhausted, we have limited resources to be patient, to be kind, to be gentle, to be generous towards those around us. We live in anxiety, we live in restlessness all the time. And that's why Sabbath is a command, not a suggestion. Sabbath is a way in which God helps protect us from ourselves. Sabbath seeks to protect us from the control that we try and hold on to for our success, for our productivity. Sabbath protects us from the belief that we get an abundant and happy life through our own efforts, through our own doing and achieving, through our own strength, through our own determination. The command of Sabbath is to take a drink from the water of life, to breathe fresh mountain air, to bask and sit in the warmth of the God's Son provided to all creation. That's what our soul longs for, that sense of stopping and resting. You know, all humans desire Sabbath, whether they know God or not, or recognize God or not. Marketing agencies all over the world know this. They know that you ache for a slower pace of life, to stop, to relax, to just be, to do nothing. And that's why so many of the ads that you'll see in lifestyle magazines and your social media feeds on television portray images of Sabbath to sell products. Images like this couple sitting in bed in the morning, reading a book, sipping a cup of coffee. What a great start to the day. Or this hiker out in nature, sitting on a mountaintop and just enjoying the scenery below him. Or a couple enjoying a nice lunch on a beach. Marketers take images of Sabbath, of people stopping from work, and use them to sell products because they know that deep down, all of us want to look like that. All of us want to be sitting on a beach having a picnic, on a mountain, watching a scene before us, staying asleep or just having a lazy start to the day, having a cup of coffee or tea, whatever you drink in the morning, and reading a book. But the ironic thing is, you don't actually have to buy $200 French linen sheets or a $700 high tenacity nylon hiking pack. I have no idea what a high tenacity nylon pack is, but that's one of the ones I found was $700. I didn't buy it, by the way, I just looked on Google. Or a $200 62-litre esky. You don't need those things to Sabbath. You just have to stop. Stop what you're doing. That's Sabbath, and it costs nothing. Spiritual writer, I do have that. Spiritual writer Marva Dawn calls this longing that everybody has a Sabbath spirituality. A Sabbath spirituality is this life where we're at peace with God and we live with joy and restfulness. Sabbath is more than a suggestion. It's God's gift to us that we breathe fresh air into our wearied bodies and souls. It helps us reorient ourselves from exhaustion to a life of abundance. And Sabbath also provides an opportunity to reset. Remember the days when a 5-day working week, some of those people don't have those now, but a 5-day working week, it was more than just this thing that was around. Those days when you'd wake up, you'd leave the house, you'd travel to work, and that was your working day. We didn't like Mondays during those times. We may not still like Mondays now if you're still working 5 days a week. Remember the Monday blues? People had the Monday blues, and it's Monday, the weekend's over. We didn't like Tuesdays because Tuesdays were too close to Monday. Wednesday was a bit better because that was hump day. We were in the middle of the week. We're now on the other side. We're heading closer to the weekend. This is good. Fridays, yeah, they were great. Oh, tomorrow's Friday. 1 day to go, and then Friday. Oh, what bliss. The weekend is here. And a restaurant chain came up with, this is a good idea, TGI Fridays. Thank God it's Fridays. We love Fridays. Fridays are kind of like a reset button. And subconsciously, maybe many of us, some of us used to, and maybe still today, we hang out for Friday. Friday is this de facto reset button when we can rest and start again for the next week. At the creation account in Genesis 2, we find God hitting that reset button. Genesis 2. This is at the sixth day has just finished, and the writer says, thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. God, the creator, stopped. God, the limitless, all-powerful, infinite being of the universe, took a Sabbath, setting for us a rhythm of rest, a rhythm of reset for every 7 days, in a 7-day week. Every single society in the world, in world civilization, has been built around a 7-day week, which is surprising when you think about it, because the week is the one unit of time that is not tied to the rest of the universe, the movement of the universe. The day is tied to the Earth's 24-hour rotation. The month is tied to the lunar cycle, the moon's lunar cycle. And the year is tied to the Earth's journey around the sun. But the 7-day week isn't tied to anything. It's built out of God's created rhythm of life, as described in the creation story. During the French Revolution, apparently, I've got 1973. I think it might have been 1873. History buffs tell me I've got a typo here. 1700. So 1773. The French attempted to change that 7-day work week, and they introduced a 10-day work week to increase productivity. It failed dismally. Productivity plummeted, and worse, there was a rash of suicides and an increase in mental health. And so that was scrapped. It went back to 7 days. Some have suggested that our generation is reliving the French Revolution all over again, not because of a longer working week, but because modern life has removed all the rhythms out of life. The smartphone, electricity, the alarm clock, the car, just to name a few, have created a world where we go and we go and we go and we go, just like the Energizer Bunny, and we never stop. But God created the human body and the creation itself to live in a rhythm. There's a rhythm between day and night, between waking and sleeping. There's a rhythm between noise and activity of spring and summer and the dormancy and quietness of autumn and winter. There's a tidal river between the land and the sea. Even within our own bodies, there's this rhythm of breathing and inhaling and exhaling. And when we lose the natural sense of that natural rhythm, pace backwards and forwards, we lose a part of our humanity. We're not a machine. We have a soul. And it was created not to keep active and moving and doing things 24/7. When we live out Sabbath, we go against the rhythm that God, the Creator himself, built into our bodies and into the fabric of all creation. And that's why Sabbath has been called a sanctuary in time. It's a distinct day in all the other days. It actually redefines the nature of time and how we live in relationship to time, especially for those other 6 days. In Exodus 16, God calls the Sabbath holy. Holy is a word that means to be set apart, to be distinct. Sabbath is holy because it has that sense of being set apart and distinct from all the other days. Where our calendar appointments drive our days, where our chores, our shopping, our sports, and our kids dictate what happens in the evenings and our weekends. Sabbath is meant to pull us back from that, to be an oasis of in this week of busyness and hectic life, where we stop. Doesn't mean we stop from caring for those around us. Means we stop from caring for those we love. Doesn't mean we stop talking to people. But on Sabbath, we stop from the temptation of trying to fit more and more and more things into our day. To stop doing the things that we do on the other 5 or 6 days of the week. Sabbath provides an opportunity for us to step back and to look over the previous week and say, how does that week gone? Okay, in light of that, what should I put in place for the next week? This reset, starting again. My Sabbath is Friday because Sunday is a work day for me. And on my Sabbath, I disconnect from work. I don't check my emails. If you email me on a Friday, I probably won't see it. I don't do any church work. Even if I haven't quite got my sermon together, I will leave that. I'll park it, and I'll come back to it on Saturday. Sabbath is more than a suggestion. On Sabbath, we stop, and we reset, review the last week, get ready for the next week. And on Sabbath, we stop to remember. The command in the 10 Commandments is remember the Sabbath. So what are we to remember on the Sabbath? We remember that there is a creator God, a God who made all of this world, and it's good. We remember that there's a rhythm in creation. We remember that we don't stop when we're finished because we will never be finished. It's never enough. We stop when the rhythm of God is inbuilt in our lives, say to stop. We remember we're not what we do or who we are or what we have or what other people think of us. We are who we are, deeply loved by. We are loved deeply by God. We remember that our life is not a right, it's a gift. We remember that the world is full of evil and injustice, yes, but it's also full of goodness and beauty and truth. We remember that we owe it to God to be grateful, to be full of joy in this world he has created. You see, Sabbath is more than just a day. It's a way of being in the world. The practice of Sabbath is a day of rest by which we cultivate a spirit of restfulness in all of life. A practice by which we undergo a dramatic shift from restlessness to restfulness, from hurry to peace, from busyness to margins, from burnout to a sustainable pace, from noise to quiet, from distraction to clarity, from isolation to solitude, from crowds to community, from grasping to gratitude, from anxiety to yielded trust in God. And in that sense of restfulness, we remember God. We remember who God is. That Sabbath is stopping from the routines of work, the routines of life, and that allows us to take this time. When we remember to stop, we remember playing and feasting and doing the things that bring joy to us. For me, that's often going out with Glenda for a coffee or lunch, going for a walk in nature, maybe doing some bird watching along the way, reading, doing cryptic crossword puzzles, working on my stamp collection, catching up with family and friends. This is how I spend my Sabbath, remembering that life is good, stopping to practice childlike curiosity in the world that God has placed us. We stop to enjoy life. As important as the practice of Sabbath is a means to an end. The end is not for us to be rested and happy. That will most likely happen as we stop. But that's not the point of Sabbath. Sabbath's end is to participate in the love and the life of God himself. That's the point of Sabbath. To stop, to center our life on him, to live more deeply with him, to center God into the entire week that we are about to enter into. And in that process of being with God, looking into Jesus, becoming more like Jesus. That's the point of Sabbath. So how do we make that happen? Well, as you leave today, some of you have already picked this up as you've come in. Take a copy of the resource that we've put together. This is for those whose eyesight is probably strong. If you find a little bit uncomfortable to read small print, there's a large copies there as well. This only includes for this week an introduction to the series on Sabbath and also some information on stopping. And next week we'll have additional resources. We'll keep adding to that week by week to build up a little pack. This resource is adapted from Practicing the Way. Some of you who are young adults are doing some of the stuff that's in there already. For this week, there's some suggestions on how you can build the practice of Sabbath into your day-to-day life, into your week. Information about a podcast on today's message that will explore that with some interviews and some conversations, which I think you'll find very helpful. I listened to that this week. And some additional reading, including 12 tips to how to get a better night's sleep. Who wants that? Grab a copy of the resource as you go today. If we run out, we'll send an email out tomorrow. Each Monday we'll do this over this next month. And that will include the resource for today so that you can download that if you missed it today, or we can print more copies off after the service. I really encourage you to consider putting Sabbath practices into your week. If you aren't already doing it, or to even enhance what you may be doing already. If you feel that taking a whole day off, 24 hours of Sabbath, is too hard to begin with, it doesn't fit with your lifestyle right now, maybe do it for half a day or even just for a few hours. It's not going to be easy. I'll say that up front. It won't be easy to do this. It will be a challenge. It's radical. It's counter-cultural to do this. But as in the news, in the article, I think I said it in the news this week as well, it can be a watershed moment in your spiritual formation of becoming more like Jesus. Sabbath is God's command. It's not just a suggestion. On Sabbath, we stop to reset and we stop to remember. It's what Jesus did. Practicing Sabbath is practicing the way of Jesus. And doing it will help us become more like him. Let's pray together.